Back again. So today I'm going to try to do something that you're not going to hear anywhere else. I'm going to explain to you the psychology of the Trump voter. Now, of course, I don't mean every Trump voter. There are exceptions to every rule, and I know a lot of Trump people who support him for a myriad of reasons, unfortunately. But I'm talking about Trump's bread and butter, that 50 to 60-year-old white guy who used to work in a factory, right? That guy who's not openly racist, a little bit racist, old school white guy, kids out of college, sleeps in a different room from his wife, back problems, losing his hair. They're not bad people. I've had several conversations with people over the last week, as a matter of fact, strangers. And I'm starting to realize exactly what it is they're looking for with Donald Trump. Over the last, I would say 40 years, 30 at least, the working class American has been systematically devalued in our society. I mean that not because of the trade deals that send our jobs overseas, but because of the way that we talk about the working class, the way we see the working class. Blue collar America. 50 years ago, if you were just a guy, not exceptional, not a guy who went to college, not a genius, just a guy, and you had a job and it was a good job and you went and you supported your family and you worked hard and you worked 40 hours to 50 hours, you brought home a paycheck every week, you put food on the table, there was respect in that. You know why? Because you were working class American. You were building something. You were part of something big, part of something great. You were the foundation of this country. Not anymore. Now, if you're an unexceptional working class American, you're a fucking loser. You screwed up. You did something wrong. You messed your life up. You're not exceptional. You're not special. You're nobody. You're not the CEO of some bullshit corporation. You're not head of whatever. You're nobody. You screwed up. You're a loser. That's how things have changed. And that self-respect that used to come along with being in the working class is gone. And that 50 to 60-year-old guy, that white guy, when he looks at Donald Trump and he says, we're going to make America great again, that's what they hear. I'm going to give you that self-respect again. I'm going to bring that back. I'm going to give you the respect you used to have. That's all they want. But they ain't going to get it from him. Now, the problem that I've run into during these conversations is it doesn't take very long before, even with complete strangers, the conversation somehow turns to a racial discussion. It's always something, and they think they're clever. It's always something about, let me ask you, have you ever called yourself an Irish American or a Welsh American? And of course I say no, and I try to make the argument to them that nobody under 35 really thinks of themselves as anything but American anymore at this point, and rightly so. We've been a nation long enough to where our gene pool is extremely unique. No matter where you come from in the world, you're more American than you are. I mean, unless you're an immigrant or maybe even first generation, but even so, you're American. I remember when Raven-Symoné got in trouble for this on The View. She said, I'm not African American, I'm American. And people got mad at her. But I understand, Raven, I get it. We should be American first. And personally, I understand why someone would want to identify with their racial origins. I get it. Especially African American people, because for so long, we didn't teach them anything about their history. And to a large extent, we still don't. And so I understand why people wanted to identify with that. But we should be proud to be Americans. Because no matter where you came from in this world, your ancestors had to survive something terrible and brutal and awful in order for you to be in this country right now. So you should be proud of that. We shouldn't have to call somebody a hyphenated American, because now it makes them a different kind of American. And you see, that feeds into the idea of the Trump voter, that the white 50-year-old middle-class guy who, building cars is what America really is. That's American. When in reality, we're all American. We're all just as American as that guy. But that feeling of self-worth and that self-respect that I just talked about, to them, is intimately tied to race. They don't really see themselves as racist, but they see the country that used to respect them and now treats them like yesterday's garbage. They've seen the correlation between that decline in their respect and the increase in rights and status of minorities. And for some reason, they see it as a zero-sum game. They think that their losses must be somebody else's gains. And so, you see, when Donald Trump gets on TV and he says, we're going to make America great again, what they really hear is make America white again. It makes perfect sense. And like I said, I don't really think they're bad people. They're just uninformed and they're just ignorant. And all they want is a little bit of respect. It's the same thing that millennials want. That's why we're flocking to a new kind of politics and a different way of doing things. Because our entire life, we've never had that respect. And we're not attracted to Trump, someone who promises to give it back to us, because you can't miss something you never had. But what we do know is that this country and the institutions of this country declared war on the future in the 1980s. And by proxy, they declared war on us. And now we're fighting back in the only way that we know how, through political means. We're doing whatever we can. And now we're rapidly becoming the most consolidated voting bloc in America. The religious right is gone. It's in shambles. The blue dog Democrat, the Reagan Democrat, gone. The Reagan Republican, gone. We're all that's left. We're the only consolidated voting bloc in America, people under 35. And we ain't going away. So, even though Donald Trump can spin his rhetoric to people who yearn for the times that used to be, even though most of it's some fantasy that was never real, he's never going to trick us. I digress. The psychology of the Trump voter is someone who wants their respect back. And they believe, mistakenly, that Donald Trump, through all of his bumblings, believes that they deserve respect. And that they believe he's going to give it back to them, somehow. By building a wall and keeping out the immigrants that have driven down their wages, so they think. And the reason they think that is because they have been fed that. They've been fed that by a right-wing propaganda machine since the late 1990s, by Fox News, by Newt Gingrich, probably the guy I could trace it back to start, Bill O'Reilly, you just name it, right? They've been fed that over and over, that your losses is because somebody else gained. So it's time for us to make America great again. Time for us to make America white again. Now, they don't know that, and they're not going to say it because I don't think they really even openly understand it themselves. But if you get into a discussion, any type of political discussion, with a guy who's 50 to 60 years old and he's white, I guarantee you within 5 minutes, the conversation will turn to race. And that's why Donald Trump's dangerous, because he's a demagogue. Because he's promising hope. He's doing what Obama did, promising hope. When the reality is, for that guy who thinks he's going to get a job building cars again, or that guy who's going to get self-respect from being working class again, it's too late for them. I'm sorry, you're never going to see it again. The problem is you're assigning that loss of respect to the wrong thing. That loss of respect came from trickle-down economics. It came from Reagan. It came from Bush Sr. It came from Bush Jr. It came from John McCain and John Boehner and Paul Ryan. That's where it came from. They're the ones, and honestly, Bill and Hillary Clinton. They're the ones that sold you out. They're the ones that turned their back on you 30 years ago. They're the ones who declared war on the future. And now we're living in the midst of that war. So don't be fooled anymore. Don't be fooled. Stop having hope of returning to a golden age that really didn't even exist, and start having hope for a future that we can build together with your kids, with your peers. A hope to make America's future great again. To make America hope again. To make America whole again. Because that's where you're going to get that self-respect back. Doesn't come from working in the factory. It doesn't come from your paycheck. It came from the feeling that you were working for something greater, that you were building a future. And that's what you need to focus on. Not a used car salesman. You heard it here first.